how could you make a sort of non-stick tank, which was
Teflon
fabulous.
tank.
And then I was asked to go and comment on it. I said, well, how do you get in it? And they were like, what?
Hello and welcome to Evo Podcast episode 43. This episode I'm joined by Henry Cashpole.
Hello.
Jim Cameron.
Hello.
Dickie Meaden.
Hello.
I'm Stuart Gallagher. So Jim, you are a guest on the Evo Podcast. Very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Would you like just to introduce yourself, who you are, why would we want to talk to you today? And also what I want to know is why are you called Tank Slider on social media handles?
Well, I can start with the easy question, which is I brought biscuits.
That's why you're here.
That's
That's the answer. Yes.
which is why I'm here. So my name's James Cameron. I am a lifelong petrol head. Always loved cars. I've done bits and pieces with Evo over the years, which has been a great privilege. But I served in the army through until end of 2012. And latterly, for the last 14 years, I've been running a charity that I'd founded while I was serving called Mission Motorsport, the Forces Motorsport charity. So, which gets to do all sorts of joyous things, but is very much around harnessing that, thrill of driving an automotive and the love of machine, and helping it with people's recovery journeys who've served in the military and, perhaps had a bit of a tough time on the way, put it into good things. Why I'm Tank Slider? Well, somebody had already taken James Cameron, I think, on Twitter. Somebody had already thought of that. He's more of a Navy
person, isn't he? So kind of.
He is, yeah. No, he sort of does. His watches are more expensive than mine. That's certainly true. But when I was a young officer, I discovered, thanks to some of the people I was serving with, that you can do skids in tanks, and particularly on a very icy, cobbly German tank park. We'd got the hang of doing, Panzerplatz, which was fantastic. I was doing Christmas duties, which you get to do if you've also been found out for doing other things. You become the subaltern's the young officer's friend because you're doing the rubbish duties. We got bored and there was no one around, and unfortunately, I didn't realise that the one person who'd stayed around on camp was the brigadier, who was walking his spaniel through an idyllic wintry scene when all of a sudden a Challenger one appeared around the side of the tank sheds, very, very crossed up, and the spaniel went directly underneath the tank and emerged, fortunately, absolutely fine out of the other side. And a beauty. Unfortunately, the brigadier was less interested in just how beautifully executed the Scandinavian S in a 60 odd 65 ton main battle tank was, and a bit more bothered about the fact that his dog had a very near death experience by going underneath it altogether. I missed it, but that's really where Tank Slider comes from.
How does the mechanics of skidding?
Now we've got to say how do you
Are you
Slider
like that?
if you've got the levers for?
Yeah, no, it's just it's a dab of Oppo, isn't it?
But
it's opposite stick. It's opposite stick. So yeah,
how do you initiate the slide? I mean,
how do you
do well, just momentum and enthusiasm and gung ho.
Okay,
and the engine's in the back.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so it's just a big 911.
So you back off.
So so literally, you back off and the thing will slew. So it does all the same dynamics as a car, but your contact patch are sort of two long contact patches instead of four separate contact patches like you've got on the car. So it'll do a lot of the same things.
And also break one side, obviously. So
they don't. It depends how fast you're going. So in a sort of really pure tracked vehicle, your one will be going slightly faster than the other in order to allow it to go around the outside of a bend.
Yeah.
But this is presumably momentum that you actually
it's momentum.
Skid it.
It's it? Well, that's what we discovered, and it was really slippy. And we'd had a few goes and got quite handy at it, which was.
Did you say watch this
exciting
before you did it?
Well, I think it was our last go. So like just one last lap.
Okay.
How hard can it be? Watch this. Various other. Sort of phrases were said.
You were very fortunate that Aston wasn't there photographing it because he'd ask you to do one more go.
Bit of smoke.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Challenger 2, you can do that.
I was going to say, what's the difference between Challenger 1 and Challenger 2?
So there's actually quite a lot. In the same way that there's quite a big difference between Challenger 2 and Challenger 3, which is the new one, which is they're going to re-engineer some of the old hulls in order to be able to do.
Are we talking sort of 991 to 991?
No.
Or are we talking
It'd be like 930 to 993 or
Yeah,
something,
exactly.
maybe, would it? And then
Yeah,
993 to 96.
The big thing they haven't changed is the lump in the back.
Right.
That's not changed as significantly. So we're not talking a sort of 993 to 996 scale.
We haven't got water
change.
pools.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden having CarPlay is going to make a big difference to the cruise.
Yeah.
They're going to really appreciate that, I think. Well, you did ask.
Well,
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, isn't it? It's got the people's jobs.
It is a relevant question. Yeah, and most of the big changes with Charlie 3 are gun, so it suddenly goes smooth bore gun, different kind of ammunition, and things like that. But it's the technology in the turret that just goes up a level. Difference in between Challenger 1 and 2. Well, actually, it wasn't that great a difference, but because I had a weird career, I spent lots of time doing tank stuff right at the very beginning, which is mid-late 90s, and then went and did weird and wonderful things. So I worked at Porton Down for a bit. I did lots of strange foreign deployments in weird places. I spent a lot of time overseas in Afghanistan and Iraq and sort of other interesting countries, and hadn't had anything to do with tanks. And in the meantime, the tank that I was trained on, Challenger 1, had gone out of service and Challenger 2 was in. And I did a squadron leader tour doing specialist stuff. And then they said, "Dude, we want you to come back and command a squadron at the Royal Tank Regiment." And I had to go and do a conversion course.
Did you complain about lack of track feel and it's a bit heavier, a bit wider? It doesn't feel quite the same.
Well, it's amazing though how long some corporate memories are. When you turn up down at Lulworth to do your gunnery course and things like that, and it was like, Major Cameron, we've been expecting you back. It's like, we remember you. Oh goodness, yeah. So the principles though are sort of very much the same of those kind of things. And actually, latterly in Afghanistan, the reason why I was brought back was to take a vehicle called Viking out of service and bring into service something that was an urgent operational requirement. So normally the military takes a very long time to procure kit, and it goes through a process that I think it's CADMID off the top of my head, sort of concept assessment, demonstration, manufacture, in-service, disposal. I think it is off the top of my head.
Good acronym knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And these... The military's amazing for acronyms. There's one which was for what are the things you need to take with you if you're a sentry in an armoured location, and they'd come up with this acronym for it, but the acronym wasn't a word. It didn't make any sense at all, and it really annoyed me because I'm like, but it's not a word. So how does it help you remember? Because it's just a random collection of letters that you're just saying quickly. And it was, you had to remember like a label and a pen and like just really stupid things. But they do things like that to help stupid soldiers like me remember stuff. And the most annoying thing about it is, having got really upset about it, was the instructor at the time said, "Yeah, but you'll remember it, won't you?" And so I can remember Urquhart-Lee. And
Sound like you're from Devon.
Yeah. Because he was a West Country. He was a two. And he's like, "Oh, but you'll remember it, sir. Urquhart-Lee. It's the things you need to take with you when you go, the things I've forgotten." Because that piece of information has pushed all of the useful things out of my head.
You could have been a hedge fund manager or anything, but that's
Man, I could have been successful and instead
here you are on a podcast with Eva.
Yeah. Where did it all go wrong?
My goodness, cheers.
Did you not learn from that first time you came and worked with us?
No. Oh my God, yeah. Urquhart-Lee. So there you go. Now you're going to remember.
It's just down the road from Barnstable, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is. It's a very narrow lane to get there, isn't it? So
unless you got a tank.
So how fast is a tank VMAX, and how far away can you hit a target whilst moving?
Everything you can see here out of this window, you can hit.
Wow.
No,
that's all of Bedfordshire.
Brilliant. Well,
it's pretty much.
Yeah. Corby, could we hit Corby?
So
I think that's already been hit.
How would you know? That's always the question, isn't it? Yeah. So longest tank to tank kill. There are lots of questions that I'm now not prepared for. It is huge. Miles away, 5, 6, 7 miles.
Because if you're a tank commander, you're not actually driving it, are you?
No, you're not driving.
So you're
it.
talking
you're in the,
to someone.
You're in the turret. Yeah.
You're doing the big kind of
the driving about bit is someone else.
Kind of,
Yeah.
So the driving about bit is someone else, but where you're sat and you've got your head in a sight, you've got a periscopic sight above you that can go 360 degrees. So the driver is completely independent to where you're sat and where you're going. So the bit of the tank that you're in and you can see is pointing where the gun is going, but the driver can be going in that direction or in the same direction.
You're always looking in the direction of the gun.
So unless you get your head out of the sight and then look around, and then there's a bit of figuring out where the hull is and which way he's going, because you'll say left and right to him.
It might be right and left in actuality.
Absolutely. And if he's reversing, you've got to give him left, because he can't see behind him. Challenger 3, you can see. You've
got a reversing camera and
with,
beeps and stuff.
With
like
your with your car player, you get a reversing camera as well. It's it's part of a package.
Wouldn't want to damage anything.
No. You're not really that bothered, if you're honest. When you're really using the things, you're not too fussed. So you're sat this way. The tank's going in that direction. The gunner, who's basically sat immediately down in front of you, he's looking exactly where the gun is looking. So he can be engaging something. You're looking into a sight, and you can be looking in the direction of the gun, you can be looking in the direction of where the hull's going, or you can be looking somewhere else altogether. Normally looking for the next thing.
I was going to say, so if the gunner's that you're looking for the next target, or where to scarper to, presumably.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can be looking for that. So you can actually find the next target and laze it independently, so you'll get a very accurate range position. It appears on the map. Challenger 3 is then sharing all of that information with the other tanks. They all go, there's something interesting here, at this exact spot. And it's also set up so if the gunner, you might have authorised him to go on and he's engaging a target which is in front. As soon as he goes, right, boom, that's destroyed, it will whip round and point to wherever you're going. Even if the tank in the meantime is moving and changing direction.
Like you almost pre-select or where it's
completely. And you've also got these 360-degree episcopes around you, so you can sit there and look all the way around under armour. So everybody says, Winter, don't be a tank commander, in your car. I know that always really annoys me. Because, it's people driving through a little bit of the side of the window that they've managed to clear with their hands. So they go, don't be a tank commander. You're like, no, that's the tank driver. He's the one who sat down. If you were a tank commander in winter, you would have opened your sunroof and you'd literally have your head and shoulders out the top. That's what the tank commander
So when
is.
you were skidding the tank around,
yes,
how much could you actually? Presumably, you can only see there, so you can't see where you were skidding it. The spandrel.
So if bad guys are going to shoot at you, you don't have your head out to the top as the commander. You'd be sat down looking through the episcopes, and they're really cool. So if you see something interesting over there's a button underneath it, and you go bang, and the turret whips round. So your gunner's gone.
Movable DTM ballast. You suddenly sort of find yourself.
Absolutely. So everyone's like, whoa, and because it goes around quickly.
Basically, you don't want to be easily distracted in that job.
No, or have a really short attention span. Yeah, no, absolutely. All of these things are terrible. And then you've got radio sets, so you'll probably have three.
Do you have a different channel for different guys? Because otherwise it would be chaos.
No.
Or
so
is it open channel for everyone in the tank?
Well, it's open channel for everybody in the tank. So you're just talking and like this. So everyone in the crew, including the driver who's down below who's doing those, he can't hear the radios necessarily. And depending on, you've got an operator there who'll normally be listening into something the same as you are and will probably be listening into something else as well. And it's sort of different layers of command. So for the squadron leader, you'd be listening in on a regimental and probably a battle group net one higher up.
Of course, because you're running the
because you're doing that. Yeah, so you've got like 14 tanks as well as the ones that are immediately sort of flanking you. So you're thinking about quite a lot at the same time. And there's a lovely quote which forgive if I get my phone out, but I should be able to find it very quickly. Which is from a Grant tank commander in the Western Desert, which I've just demonstrated I can't find.
But you are holding a conversation whilst doing that. Thereby demonstrating your multiple.
Yeah, that's it. My ability to do that. So,
but presumably you can drive the tank with your head above.
Yeah,
if you haven't got any bad person shooting at you, or even
absolutely. In the answer to your question about how much could you see when you're doing skids, I wasn't closed down and looking through an episcope. you've got your head up, but the turret is immediately above you.
Yeah.
And your effective forward view is sort of like that. You know, you've got about 90 degrees on that sort of forward arc. 45
You get a
either way.
different because if you're in the driver's position, you're right up the front, are you?
Yes.
So everything's swinging around behind you, whereas
Yes.
you're in the centre,
and you're actually
but you're much higher up. So you must get a
much higher up. Yeah,
different
and also
feel
rotating
of what
and
the
rotating
thing's
with the
doing.
turret as
So
well.
it's like a 911 Dakar.
It's a bit like a 911 Dakar, yeah. That somebody's then sort of stuck a turret on
With a
top of
massive
and you're on
gun.
the turret. With
It's
a
the
great
only
gun.
way you could make a Dakar any better, isn't it? Just fit it with a massive gun.
2 guns. That's it. That would be really good. But here's the tank commander. So this is a direct quote from a tank commander in the Western Desert in 1942, and it's often trotted out as a reality of fighting in tanks. Those things had a 75mm gun that was set into the hull. So as he sat there, he's got... So if you think about what I've just sort of described in the tank, you're sat there with a thing in front of you, and you're actually looking in that direction. So you're looking in that direction and doing that. The tank is moving around, and you're giving the driver left and right in order to be able to do it. And he might be pointing that way, going in that direction. The gunner, in the meantime, he's engaging a target that is straight ahead of you as it's going. And then you've got 2 different radio nets in one ear and 1 different radio net in that ear, who are all saying different things and overlapping because they're not...
It sounds very much like an Evo long-term planning meeting or something.
Absolutely. And
Well,
then...
it sounds a little bit more organised, if you ask me.
And then someone in the tank's asking, you know, like, can I have a cup of tea? Or
Oh no, then we are. Yeah, that's okay.
yeah, you've done those. But this lovely quote from 1942 is: the 75mm gun is firing, the 37mm gun is firing. That's the one in the turret, but it's traversed round the wrong way. The Browning is jammed, which is his machine gun directly in front of him. I'm saying driver advance. But he's saying it on the A set, so the driver can't hear him, and he's transmitting it over the radio set to, you know, a battle group who have suddenly got some idiot saying driver advance over the battle group now. And the driver who can't hear me is rehearsing. And as I look over the top of the turret, I see 12 enemy tanks 50 yards away. Someone hands me a cheese sandwich. It's exactly the same today. It's exactly the same. So that wonderful quote from from the Western Desert in 42. It's still very much, and the sandwich comes with black fingerprints in it.
Obviously,
Yeah.
So how many of you are in a modern tank?
Four in a main battle tank. Yeah. So starting with the driver, he's the only one who's in the hull.
Yeah.
So he's pointing in he's got the most comfy seat. He's laid back. It's like a race car. His knees and his feet are really quite high. He's steering as you sort of, everybody immediately did the dabba boppo, you know, as you start steering with an imaginary steering wheel. Yeah, sticks.
Yeah.
So he's got sticks on either side. They're quite heavy when you're just setting off. And as you get light, they come alive, and it's literally just fingertips.
And then is there a throttle and brake
Yeah,
pedal?
yeah. So
conventionally?
pretty conventional sort of throttle and brake thing, and it's a V12 Rolls-Royce twin turbo, knocks out a bit of power. It's quite torquey.
And transmission-wise, it just
Yeah,
does all that for you.
it does. Yeah, it does. It does all of that sort of stuff for you. And as you haul into a corner, it either is then slowing the outside track to the inside track, so the thing starts to slew round. As you get slower or you haul more on, it will actually stop the inside track. If you're stationary, you can go like that, and one will go forwards, one will go backwards, and you spin on the spot, like one of those dreadful
G-Wagon.
or EV. Yeah.
All these EV companies going, oh, look at us, our car.
Yeah, no,
We've been doing
and
it for years.
but it's called a tank turn. Yeah, absolutely, and they've been doing it for years. And generally speaking, tank turns are really, really cool, unless you're the Duke of Richmond and some idiot has just done it on your lawn at the end of Festival of Speed to show off to his mates. I don't know if the Duke
Made
is
a
still
mess of the
speaking
lawn,
to
I
me.
should think.
He remembered that for quite a long time afterwards.
Yeah, I can't think why.
Still reminds me about it occasionally. Actually, the thing that really caused that wasn't me. That was Anthony Reid, who I made the mistake of letting Anthony Reid have a little go in it.
Anthony Reid in a battle tank.
He's just opened up a whole new world.
How can you make a tank more lethal? Put Anthony Reid in it.
Yeah.
I guess your defence was you were overseas in the 90s, so you didn't see him race a touring car.
Yeah, no. I had just watched him take the left-hand wing mirror off that chevron that he went up the hill in, and he knocked it off on the flint wall.
On the wall.
Yeah.
Which, having driven up there during a Festival of Speed, it's so intimidating, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Most people stay as far away as possible from it. don't
Yeah.
they? Unless you're in a tank, presumably. Maybe he just thinks he's in a tank.
Well, yeah. Well, he's certainly his. He's not big on listening to briefings and things like that and doing what he's told, certainly. So But yeah, Anthony was great. But in between Anthony and I, we dug up a bit of the Duke's edge of his cricket pitch, and I wasn't forgiven for that for quite some
the
time.
cricket pitch.
It wasn't quite the cricket pitch, but maybe it was silly me off.
That's something, like you said.
Yeah,
Off.
That's what
something.
that's what it is.
Silly,
Yeah, it's very nice that they
Tanks.
occasionally let us come back.
Apart from the being shot at whilst you're doing it bit, it sounds brilliant fun to me.
Why has no one ever done tank racing?
Well, actually, the people who have are the Russians who host the tank games every year. And
I think I've seen a YouTube clip of that.
oh yeah,
Yes.
no, do go and have a look.
Yeah.
Tank games, go and have a look. And it stopped really actually with the war in Ukraine because they ran out of tanks. But they also kind of ran out of allies to do it with, so it got more and more ropey as they did it, as the Russians did it. So the tanks are sort of T-90 Soviet era things, and the countries that they're competing against are the very finest from across the world. When you go and have a look on YouTube, and there's various random African nations who clearly owed the Russians something, or bought Russian kit, would turn up and have a go in it. And so the tank games on YouTube are absolutely glorious.
So they're in like Group N tanks, and then the Russians turn up with a full Group B spec T-90.
Pretty much, and then somebody rolls it, and because that's definitely possible. So you've seen the video, and that's just terrifying.
Is that bad? Can you get out if you've turned it over?
No, because most of the lids are on the top. When I was at Portland Down, actually, I was involved in a program. I wasn't involved in a program. I got asked to comment on a program. So you have some wonderful things where scientists will get together and they will follow a thread of science that absolutely will identify a problem to something that nobody's ever realised is a problem, but they'll absolutely pull away on it for a while. And there was a lovely program which was about sloped armour. Works for a number of reasons. It makes the effective thickness of the armour greater because you put it at an angle, so it's further to go through, and things could glance off. And somebody had gone, well, the glance off thing's interesting. What if you made a sort of non-stick coating to the, actually, would that help something to be deflected instead of penetrating if it literally just skidded off the surface? So there was this wonderful program that they were pursuing, which was all about how could you make a sort of non-stick tank, which was fabulous.
Tank.
And then I was asked to go and comment on it. I said, well, how do you get in it? And they were like, what? Well, I've got a door in the side. You don't step into it. You've got to climb on top of it. And just the idea of a crew unable
Slipping around.
to get into their tank. I just thought that was absolutely glorious. But yeah, I don't think that program went any further.
And then,
unfortunately,
should they end up in somewhere warm, frying eggs on it?
Yeah. All of these things are possible. Yeah.
Perfect.
We better talk about something other than tanks.
Tanks.
Teflon tanks.
Teflon tanks.
Well, I was going to talk about, because it's on your T-shirt, Race Remembrance and your recent track day that we... So Race Remembrance,
Yeah.
I remember I wasn't at EVA at the time, but the first time you did it, which was...
2014?
Yeah, started a sort of a relationship with Anglesey, hasn't it? With you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, just what is Race Remembrance and who came up with the idea? I think I know who it is. I think I'm looking at him, but...
No, well, that's it. So I am credited with it, but it wasn't me. So I, the manager at the time of Anglesey, I'd collared at Autosport. It used to be held in January at the NEC.
Is that Richard? Was Richard?
No, it was after Richard Peacock, but he had a chap in there who was a lovely guy, and I'd managed to collar him and said, look, we really want to do something. It'd be great. We haven't got any money because we're a charity, etc. Could you do something for us? And he said, well, yeah, why don't you have a couple of days, but we'll do it at the end of the year, effectively in time which would be commercially not that viable for them, and therefore, it's something that the circuit could afford to do for us. And we batted around a couple of dates in November, and then and they said, well, yeah, this is going to be the weekend. And we sort of looked and went, oh, that's Remembrance weekend. And I'd sort of thought, hey, let's do a track day, or just what a great opportunity to have Anglesey to yourself. Let's take some folk up there and we can do some instruction, go and stand on a couple of corners, really do some theory and piss about, do some skids. It'll be great fun. What's not to like? And it was actually a guy called John Earp who was in the process of leaving the military at the same time as me, who was a helicopter pilot. And John was about to take over flying Carnarvon Air Ambulance. So he was a local, or becoming a local.
Yeah.
And John's like, no, we need to have a race. And I'm sort of, yeah, okay, well, maybe one of the days. He was like, no, absolutely needs to be a race. We can talk to race organisers. We know how to do this. And for us, that was genuinely it felt like we had 2.5 employees at that time. I was the half. I was we had 2 professionals and then me who was doing it sort of in my spare time. And it felt a bit like Guernsey launching a space mission. But in 2014, with a bit of support from Mazda UK, we had 26 cars on the grid for the first ever race of Remembrance held on Remembrance weekend. And this idea of...
Always had an unusual format, hasn't it?
Yeah, where you stop a race in full flow and do a service of remembrance in the pit lane, and then away you go again. And you have this wonderful sort of... And I thought it was a ridiculous idea from the outset. And as I was stood there, and the weather had been appalling, as one would expect, and then the sun came out as we started doing this.
As it can do,
yeah, as it also will do, without a doubt. You will have everything, and it did it for the Remembrance service. And I just remember standing, and the wind had dropped, and the only thing you could hear was the waves on the
just over the cliff, isn't it? From the
and when you're doing that on the falling notes of a bugle with best part of 1,000 people, now 2,500 people, all in a pit lane, it's extraordinary. And it makes the hairs go up on your arms. And I stood there and I had these 2 simultaneous feelings. The first one of which was, this is wonderful. I mean, this is really great. And the second feeling that I had simultaneously was like, oh, fuck, I've got to do this every year now. Yeah.
It really is it's part of the calendar, though, isn't it? Now I think people
it's a really special thing.
Want to come and do the race. I've been lucky enough to do the race, and it's normally a race meeting. The race is the most important thing, isn't it? It's what everyone's there for. It's
a service of remembrance that we drape.
It's like the least. It's enjoyable, but it's the least important component of the whole weekend. Somehow, it's a very
we've
sobering but enjoyable thing to do.
It is really poignant. It's an amazing thing to do, and when you've got 2,000 people there in Anglesey, we're in our 5th year of running a karting race of remembrance. We have an online race of remembrance that allows anybody to, take place anywhere in the world. We have people from different countries.
Do you get overseas teams do the actual race?
We do, yeah. I mean, I think we had Dutch teams there across when you were there. The Americans and Canadians, absolutely. Yeah, well, they came across. It was a friend of mine called Graham Martin, who's a wonderful bloke. He and I were both in Iraq in 2003, I think. And he's a wonderful guy, and he'd followed our progress because he listens to Radio Le Mans. He's just a huge endurance racing fan. So when the charity first set up, he'd heard Hindhaugh banging on about the stuff that we were doing, and had made a donation. We got in touch, and he came across for a race of remembrance and just went, "This is incredible. I need to bring back my countrymen to come and see it," and brought back some people who were so inspired that they set up Operation Motorsport, which is a US and Canadian charity that's doing a very similar thing. It's harnessing motorsport in order to help people who've served in the military. That's now, they'll be approaching their 10th birthday soon, which is just extraordinary. And it all sort of came from this wonderful thing. But it is really poignant, and it's not, but it's contemporary. It's not sort of thinking about the deprivations of the First World War and things like that. You've very much got a front rank of people who are in the middle of their own sort of contemporary stories. But I think everybody there, Christ, we all, we lived through COVID. We've all suffered deprivations at different times, and you're never quiet or silent or in the moment. People pay a lot of money to do mindfulness training, because if you find yourself silent, you get your phone out straight away, don't you? And you distract yourself with stuff. So it's actually quite a discipline to do nothing and to be just alone in your thoughts. But when you're not alone in your thoughts and it's with 2,000 other people at the same time, it's really quite a moving thing. So it's lovely. It was Motorsport UK's event of the year last year. This year, I think that's been won by another event, British Grand Prix. I've never heard of it myself, but apparently it's a great thing. But it's lovely. It's a great thing.
Because it's evolved into this, as you just said, big thing and taken on by others. But it was very early days of Mission Motorsport, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Quite a big thing to take on. How did the charity come about, and what's the premise behind it, and where is it now? Because you've just sort of moved on in your role with it as well, haven't you?
Well, I have. So I mean, when we started, it really was because I was commanding the armour group in Afghanistan in 2010 into 2011, and that was The vehicle that was going out of service was Viking, was sort of the 2-boxed, tracked, articulated in the middle things, which versions of which the Royal Marines still use, mainly the Arctic and places like that. And they're an amazing vehicle that can go just about anywhere, very low ground pressure.
Yeah.
So they're incredibly good off-road. But they've been targeted very successfully and increasingly successfully. You've always got an arms race of one side against the other, trying to outthink. And that was being replaced by this thing called Warthog, that in incredibly quick timelines, I was sort of talked earlier about CAD-MID, it takes forever. So you order a laptop, in 23 years, you get a ZX81, in a hardened box because it's been made to military specifications in a world of, cheap, not even Panasonic Toughbooks, just cheap things. But it doesn't work, doesn't matter because all the information is in the cloud. You just get another one and away you go. So to be able to bring out a vehicle in just 2 years was incredibly fast, to do that under urgent operational requirement. But you're doing a job as well, which is about closing with and killing the enemy, of fundamentally sort of taking and holding ground. And that puts you in harm's way, and therefore, you've got bad guys who are trying to do bad things to you in exactly the same way. And so, we knew that on the previous tour we'd lost people. Scotty's Little Soldiers, which is a service charity that some might have heard of. Corporal Scott was a Royal Tank Regiment corporal who was killed in Viking in 2009, amongst others. And so to go out there with Warthog, we knew we were sort of going into harm's way. And the best way of defending against IEDs is, V-shaped hulls and blast attenuation and stuff like that. But the best way to do it is don't run over them. So therefore be as unpredictable and as maneuverist as you possibly can be, to be really difficult for them to have anticipated where you're going to be. Yeah, was very much what we did. So we went out a lot. And I was very fortunate that we got to bring everybody home, which was a mixture of, good kit. I think I would have gone to 9 funerals had we been in Vikings. And as it was, got to bring people home, but not necessarily intact.
Yeah.
And, that sort of mixture of luck and things like that. So when I came back, I was spending quite a lot of time in sort of Queen Elizabeth's Hospital meeting people. And it was at the same time that there were some wonderful things happening, like Top Gear talking about, some lads who were off to go and do the Dakar. And that's a great idea. But when you meet a bloke who's in the bed next door to one of our lads who's getting extra bits sawn off him as a result of an infection he's received because he's been told he's a hero and he's going to go and do the Dakar. So he's been hill rallying, but with no medical risk assessment in place. And that for him was the difference between going on a program where he can go on prosthetics and walk again or being in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. You're not helping him if you haven't done that. Yeah. And so to put that duty of care piece right in the centre of what we do, because it's not about the sport. The sport's just the tool that you're using to help people who are on a journey of recovery and to help them and their families is the big piece. So that race, retrain, recover bit that underpins what the charity does has been there since the beginning, because sport is just the tool. It's the thing that you're using to get people off the sofa and engaged, and then to turn it into something really positive. And so those links to the automotive industry came really quite early. And it was through things like Invictus Games in 2014 that was amazing. Nobody knew what it was going to be like. And JLR, bless them, had gone, we're in for this, let's make it something great.
And as much as it was motorsport, because I remember coming to some very early days, and it was I suppose motorsport is so much more than just the driver, and talked about the race, but it was getting people involved wherever they could be. And then you had successes with putting people with manufacturers to do
it's an objective,
all sorts
isn't
of
it, with a team of people with lots of diverse skills that are all, you belong to the same type thing. I think a lot of your guys, when been lucky enough to meet quite a few of them, and they've been so focused and so part of something much bigger than them. And then I guess when you're discharged from the army, you come to terms with whatever's happened to you, and you're not part of anything anymore, are you? So to see your guys gelling as a team and finding that, well, actually, I might have a arm missing or a leg missing, but I can still be really, really good at what I'm doing here and enjoy the success that comes from that.
You remember you saying that, these are people that you go out to the industry and say, look, here's somebody that's going to turn up on time, is used to working ridiculous, more hours than you will ever do, kind of sort of, and is also, has more skills than you would ever believe in all sorts of different areas. These are incredibly valuable
because
people.
of some of the army training for high voltage electrical systems and all of the things that we're coming to see as
and it's everywhere.
World.
But there's a translation piece, and it's often that's the translation. So serving in the military is a very different culture, and so there's a bit of helping people across that sort of culture divide from one thing to the other. But it uses different language as well. And high voltage in the automotive industry got a big shake-up when the government white paper came out in 2018, the Road to Zero, which, whether it was going to be hydrogen or whether it was electrification at the center of it. And you suddenly needed people who couldn't just do 12 volts or even 240 volt AC. They needed to do sort of big fat orange tubes underneath the bonnet of your car, which was high voltage. And we'd sat down to do with MOD a skills thing and said, look, can we find out who is leaving the military with high voltage qualifications? And we had, actually the Navy stuff turned up. It was not a figurative, it was a literal stack of paperwork. These are the courses that the high voltage stuff, and the Navy and the Army and the RAF. And so I go, because I know nothing about the Navy, I know a bit too much about the Royal Air Force. So I go looking for tanks, and I'm looking for those roles, because we talked about that turret of the tank that you hit the button and it whips round. It's not some fella going like that that's moving 26 tons of turret round on the move and stabilizing the gun. It's some pretty big electrons. So I go looking for driver mech and gunner mech, because there's the point at which they're allowed into the metadynes. I don't even know what a metadyne is, but it's the electric gubbins in the turret that drives the turret round, which is over a certain amount. And I'm looking for those trades, and I couldn't find them. I don't know, well, why aren't they there? We genuinely spent a day sort of head scratching, and we're looking for that high voltage keyword search thing, and then went, hang on a minute, what's high voltage? And high voltage, different industries do it in different ways, but high voltage, as far as automotive industry was concerned, is anything over 60 volts, depending on which bit of legislation you look at.
Oh, so the threshold was different for
Tesla, what's that? 400, 600, we're now seeing 800 volt vehicles. Yeah. Military high voltage, over 1,000. And you're like, for God's sake. So these people have actually got all the behaviours, the competencies, the skill sets, but they haven't got the language. They don't know that. They haven't got a certificate that says high voltage, and no one has said that to them on it. They think that's something that's beyond their reach. The reality is they've done it all of the time.
They're already one step, two steps ahead of people in the industry.
Well, yeah, but they don't have a degree. They're much less likely to have a degree. They haven't got prior industry experience. They've never written about themselves in the first person. So their first attempt at doing a CV is agonizingly awful. And they use words like sniper and things like that, which in industry, I've met lots of morale snipers, don't get me wrong. But they use a different language. So to help them navigate that is a bit of, yes, you can try to change the person to make them a better fit for industry, but I've looked at it the other way, to go, how can you give industry the right tools so that it can actually unpick which of these people are the ones that are really going to enhance your business, and which aren't the right fit, and give them the right tools to be able to do that. And then it's the best thing in the world about my job, which is easy, because I just bask in the reflected glory of others.
But how many beneficiaries have passed through the charity since?
We've just
done. What levels of beneficiary have there? So people that have gone on to have full-time employment, and other people that have just benefited from the boost of being part of what you.
So we've got those who are wounded, injured, or sick. So they've been medically discharged from the forces, leaving with some sort of issue. More than 20,000 now have been through the doors of the charity, which is mind-blowing in 14 years. Distinct individuals. There's a larger audience of people when you go and include family members and spouses and all of the rest of it who've been involved too. And then the work which is representing a bigger community, those who've served and their families, not necessarily the ones who are broken, is bigger than that again, but whether they've directly been through the charity or whether they've benefited from things that the charity has put in place, where they've never even heard about us. Because I'm not that interested in empire building, to make a thing. I'm interested in the outcome. So Jaguar Land Rover changed quite profoundly around that first Invictus Games back in 2014 and started counting and actually, using some metrics. And we know then that more than 1,600 veterans have found new careers in Jaguar Land Rover since the 1st of January 2015.
Wow.
Which is fantastic. And then when you look at what Lotus have done and Morgan have done, and then into the supply chain and lots of other things, Stellantis doing great things, into across those companies too, then it's much more than that, which is lovely.
Wow, it's very impressive, isn't it? A lot of people with positive.
It goes quite a long way from
benefits.
Cocking about on a track day, and doing skids in tanks. You then end up sort of doing some of those things, but it's kind of been a logical extension of doing more of the things that worked. And when something hasn't worked, going, well, let's not do that again. No, that was rubbish.
Do the MOD are they more engaged with what happens to their the people afterwards now than they used to be, do you think, as a consequence?
Very, very much so. As a consequence of us, I don't, but they certainly are much more than when I was leaving. And I think there was a narrative that we broke. The IRA were responsible for us breaking our contemporary link with those who serve, because we hid service from society for the best part of 4 decades. For very good reasons of security. You'd change into civilian clothes before you went home. Most people who served in the military did it overseas, in Germany, and various other places. And if you bumped into someone in a pub or at a track day and they said, what do? You would lie for security reasons. And so the chances of somebody knowing a contemporary serviceman or woman was massively reduced. And so we think about, the war as being the Second World War and the greatest generation, about those, and you lose that contact in society with those who sort of come along afterwards. Help for Heroes helped us find it to a degree, with this amazing thing that captured the zeitgeist that people just wanted to support, regardless of politics. They wanted to support the blokes and the girls, independent of politics, because you recognise they're doing a job so that we don't have to, right? And that was important. But that's very much focused on those who've had the most awful of times, and have really been hurt by it. And we're really pushing a positive message, because you see these people who've gone on to do incredible things. The more we can help them to be successful and independent and successful civilians, the better. And that's not really a traditional service charity narrative, but it's one that we've found a really happy space with, and where it's kind of resonated with people, and it's made a difference. But I think society is better. I think government is much better. We now have a thing called the Office for Veterans Affairs in Government that sat in the Cabinet Office underneath, sort of Johnny Mercer's rising star and crash, and Johnny's way of doing things, but gave us this thing called the Office for Veterans Affairs. And
so you're represented at the
and that's now been subsumed into MOD, but it does mean that sort of veterans have a voice in a way that they didn't in the past, and but they kind of recognise, if we want the UK to succeed and we want Britain to do well, they're a strategic national asset. We've invested a fortune in these people, in blood, sweat and tears. If we allow them to be underemployed, or unemployed, or worse, under a bridge or a suicide statistic, then we are failing as a society. So it's natural for us to want the best things for them, because it means the best for us as a country.
Yeah. And they've gone on to do some of the roles that we've discussed over the years that you've been really proud at putting them into amazing roles. Some of the stuff they're doing is sort of dream job for
It's joyous,
people, isn't it?
And you look everywhere. So I had a call from a lad called Richie Storer on the way here. Richie's nuts. I mean, I hope he listens to this, Richie. If you're watching, you are crazy. Irish Guardsman, medically discharged, post-traumatic stress disorder, had all sorts of impacts on Richie in his life. But he was ringing me up because he's currently working for a facilities management business, basically. And he said, I got pulled in. He's a Brummie. I won't attempt his accent. He said, I got pulled in by my boss, and I thought I was in for a bollocking. And they're basically having they're expanding, and his boss had brought him in to say, we need more people like you. And for somebody to be saying that to Richie Storer is huge credit to that lad for just the distance that he's come, but also the fact that he works. He properly grafts, and he's a great bloke. And then it's reflected back on them. So I was took a phone call on the way here, joining him up with a thing called the Career Transition Partnership, which is what we as taxpayers have paid for to do resettlement provision for those who are leaving. 15,000 people leaving the services every year. It's free to advertise your jobs to them. At the moment, the government will give you a national insurance window of a year for national insurance contributions.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's worth up to about £6,500 it's capped at. If you've hired somebody, it's their first job out of service, or their first 365 days of employment out of service. You won't pay national insurance contributions for. So, but Bob's Widgets of Peterborough, or the facilities management company, doesn't necessarily know about that. So how can I use the platform that we have, even the Evo podcast, to be able to get that out to people, to go, consider these people, perhaps think about giving them a chance. And you asked about the government and what do they do? Well, yeah, government is leaning in as well in order to try and help to just level the playing field a little bit for these people who aren't as good on LinkedIn as some of their peers who didn't.
I'm with them on that.
You mean they can't sell every opportunity into a sales opportunity?
Yeah, that reminds me.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Shall we have probably have a break and then talk to Jim about all his ridiculous and eat his biscuits?
I was thinking more, can we eat his biscuits first and then we can talk about his ridiculous cars?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Yes. Okay, well, we'll see you in part 2. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the Evo podcast. I'm with Henry, Dickie and special guest James Cameron in the second half. Jim in the first.
Oh, I get promoted.
Yeah,
it means I'm in trouble normally if I
Yes.
get the full James. So if it was my mother, yeah.
Stick around for the third part, you'll be major by then. So.
Oh, God. Demoted again.
Let's talk about you and your cars, because if anyone's followed you on social media, you've got quite an eclectic mix of stuff over the years that I've seen. Some of it similar to your tanks with the engine in the back.
Yes.
But you've also got some very old stuff that's currently in a literal shed in your garden. Did you build a shed around the car?
Yeah, well, there was a bit. I needed more space at home because I owned things, but they were, but they weren't accessible. So it's a bit of a pain in the backside to go and.
Because you live in Oxfordshire, don't you?
I'm actually, we're Berkshire and
sorry,
against the Hampshire border. We can see the Hampshire border from my house.
And you have a car just currently conveniently parked at the Nürburgring.
And I used to have a E30 3.5 litre, so it's like the boat engine, the big 3.5 in this E30, which lived out at the ring for some time, and I wanted to be able to put more stuff at home, and it coincided with the shed came about. I'd asked my wife, who's famously long-suffering and patient, and sort of said, I need a shed. I'm a man, I don't have a shed. I should have a shed. And she sort of went, yeah, all right, whatever.
Was she imagining a talk shed?
Yeah.
And then,
little century shed of the garden.
10 by 8 sort of. Yeah.
Well, she got suspicious because I was a bit too happy about planning for this shed, and then she twigged that I'd sold a Maserati to pay for the shed. And she was like, whoa, hang on a minute, where's the shed going? I was like, right in the back.
Because you had a 3200 GT.
No, I had a 4200. Yeah. So I wasn't quite that masochistic that I had. Yes, I missed the rear lights, but I did get the sort of Ferrari-ish V8 in it, which was great. But that was sold really to pay for the shed. And Jude sort of went, hang on, how big's the shed? And I said, well, it's a shed. It's 6 by 9. And she went, 6 by 9 sounds about right.
Meters.
So
if you go on the local planning authority website, you'll see it.
No, exactly.
500 miles to Brook.
And so, she had gone to London for a few days for her brother to go and do good auntie duties, as her brother had, I think, their first, second, or third, or fifth born, or whatever it was, and came back, and there was an enormous JCB in the back garden, and this trench, the Somme Reenactment Society that we were building at one point, but then a big concrete base, and then this thing. It's called a shed, but it's a sort of a log cabin, really. But it's 6 meters by 9 meters, so it's a decent size. And so that's been office, man cave. There's obviously a beer fridge in it. And at the moment there's a 1976 Carrera 911 Carrera race car, a Carrera 3-litre, which is a really cool thing, and a 1923 Dodge touring car, which was really the result of me attending an auction, having had a couple of beers. But it's also that 90. It was the I never used to understand the like pre-war stuff, but I went and did. Through the charity, we took a load of boys out to go and support Martin Overington racing at Classic Le Mans in a 1929 Blower Bentley. And that was like the light bulb kind of came on then. Actually, because Martin would also then just take it on the road and go to the pub in it, at insane speeds. And I sort of went, I kind of get this. There's some real charm to it. So I bought the Dodge when it was 95 years old. Having this fanciful idea that when it turned 100 it was going to be worth more money. that didn't occur, so that hasn't happened. So the 911s, so I've got a couple of 1970s 911s, and they in value I guess have done ridiculously well. The Dodge has gone the other way, and I broke the roof just to make it even worse. But but that's a great thing, and it's the best thing in the world for going to the pub in. It's hilarious.
So it's a big, for people who haven't seen it, it's a
big
open
get a picture of it for
like 5-seater.
Yeah, and it's got running boards, so it's that sort of 1920s Valentine's Day massacre sort of Tommy gun kind of. It's one of those. It's exactly one of those, but it's the Americans. So like that wonderful Bentley blower is actually quite intimidating to drive because the throttle's in the middle.
Yeah.
And anyone who's driven one of those things, whatever you do intuitively is wrong. Yeah. The thing you first try and do is the wrong thing.
So it's perfect for tank commander.
Yeah.
Well,
you can't enjoy driving because the moment you enjoy yourself, you completely forget and you hit the wrong pedal.
You forget yourself, and something happens in front of you, and you hit the brake, which turns out to accelerate you dramatically towards the seat of your.
Sounds like
just do the Hammond maneuver and press all the pedals at the same time.
Somebody hands you a cheese sandwich, and it's all.
And someone hands you a cheese sandwich. It's all right. But it was the Americans. So Buicks and Dodges from the early 20s. Did clutch brake accelerator. They were the first ones to put them in the right order. H-pattern gearbox. And the thing for this particular Dodge is it's completely restored. So it's like a new car with a broken hood.
All the oil leaks is standard.
So all of the oil leaks happen in the right place as opposed to the wrong place. But it's pretty mint, but it's not on wooden spoked wheels. It's got disc wheels, which means that if you're like me and you want to park it up for 6 months and just ignore it, you don't need to know a Cartwright to make the wheels. Absolutely. Or you don't have to like lift it up, over winter for the wheels not going oval. You just basically, and particularly after we put an electric fuel pump. So with Bad Obsession Motorsport, we dug it out after an extended hiatus just to go to the pub in it. And it took all day tinkering just to get to the pub, which is a mile down the road to be able to do it. And that was great and really charming. But yeah, we put a modern fuel pump on it. So you literally get in, it's electric start, and it just goes boom, 12 volt electrics, and it just
away.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, the fastest I've ever gone on it, according to GPS, was 47 miles an hour, and that felt like you're re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. I mean, that was terrifying. And if you sort of sneeze or faintly look away and then back again, it's in a different place to where it was. So it'll just cheerfully.
There's no further down the road. It's just move left or right.
It just sort of veers off. But they're amazing off-road because roads then didn't look like roads now. They were literally cart tracks.
Yeah, tracks.
So they were better.
So the articulation of it.
Very much like they are now.
It is. Yeah, no, So it's not bothered by potholes and things like that. You just don't feel it. And you're on this lovely sort of sprung sofa. And Jude just twigged because she's like, you always want the place to look like a bloody officer's mess. In the house, so she said there's just a way of getting Chesterfields into the house without I can see. So we built the shed in lockdown with my kids, and so it was brilliant when there was all of those regulations, and it was you couldn't be in the house but you could be in the garden.
Yeah,
you're like, well, it is a shed. We're in the garden, so it's also if you lift the carpets up, it's full of crisps and things like that of where drunk people have been in it. So that's pretty good. But yeah, that and 911s, I tend to get associated with that, and inevitably Land Rovers.
What was your first? Maybe not your first, unless your first car was a sporty car. What was your first like proper?
My first car was a car that I did sport in because it was a Series 3 Land Rover.
Oh, okay.
And I did all my first skids in Series 3 Land Rovers because it was their rear wheel drive until you plonk that yellow or thing down, and then it would engage. But I did trialing in it because that was the only thing I could afford to do that was motorsport as a student. But the first I had quite a lot of fast stuff. But the first thing I sort of really did motorsport in was an Integrale, I guess.
8-valve, 16-valve.
It was an 8-valve, but with a 16-valve bonnet and the old vertical spoiler on the back and white speed lines, and
nice.
it was mega. Loved that thing. And I was based at the time in Harrogate, which is pretty much where I'm from.
Yeah.
And so with a girlfriend who lived up the Dales, so it was just amazing. Used to go and chase the bikers around there. I had an XJS as well for a bit that I used to use for similar purposes. That was a bit more of a handful. But that's been a really good thing. And then just a sort of succession of Subarus and 200 SXs. Jude had an S13 and I had an S14. So it looked a bit like the owners club. It was sideways. So that had to move on. And an RX-7 because I'm a masochist.
Oh, I've forgotten about the RX-7.
Yeah, I had a RX.
So it's a late, I don't know, FD or what are they called?
Yeah,
It was an
the
FD?
beautiful shapes.
Yeah.
The beautiful shapes RX-7. And I was based in Suffolk and our house was in just outside Harrogate. And so
economical then too.
To do that weekend commute, but just how do you get home on a Friday as fast as you can? And the A14, A1.
But it was that was a car track.
Yeah. Not a lot of fun. Or you go, well, hang on a minute, you surely go a much more direct route, and learn the names of places like Sleaford and, go across the fens. And that RX-7 was extraordinary for doing that because you could, you'd be stuck behind locals.
Tractors.
Or tractors. Yeah, absolutely. But you could pull that.
Is it the 6 mile or 9 mile straight on that piece of road?
Yeah. That's yes, exactly. You look at it and you go, I think I can overtake one or two. And you're still in the outside lane and counting at 20 odd. But it's
get to the end, check the oil.
Overtake
them all again.
change the road to Tipsy.
Just get out and just put it in. I know what I was going to say. So obviously I bought the finest one that I possibly could, and then had to rebuild it like within a month of buying the bloody thing. So which bankrupted me. So I'm still paying for that. I think I'm still paying for the Integrale. There's been a variety of stupid things like that.
Where did your love of cars come from? Is it from sort of family, father, brothers, uncles and stuff?
Mum and dad, really. And my grandfather always had. I always remember them having big old Jags, which was great. My dad was I think he worked for Barclays Bank, and so he had the big Jags, and that was on my mum's side. On my dad's side, his father was a carpenter. So Morgan's. No, I mean but my dad was a rep, so I remember really clearly. I remember every car that my dad had because it was such a big thing that they'd have the list that they would then choose from, and it was all of that classic. Do you have a Sierra or a Cavalier? All of that thing. And so my dad's first sort of jelly mold. But by far my best birthday that I've ever had was when my dad turned up to come and pick. Well, my mum turned up to come and pick us all up, and she borrowed her boss's car that was a Bentley T2 that got a load of excitable schoolboys then all in this Bentley. I think I'd have been at 8 or 9. And then my dad turned up in a white 1.6 L Capri, Yol 208T. And that having, he was coming out of a Cavalier into that. And that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And it was just glorious. So it's like, at some point, this idiot will buy, clearly, a Capri. I've had Cortina. I had a Coke bottle Cortina that I ran when I was based in Honington. So one of those Mark III, you don't see any of them anymore because they all
went banger racing.
Yeah, you're right. They all went banger racing, and that had a Pinto in it, and then it had a V6 in it, and ended up with side exit exhaust underneath. under the back doors because it was a 4-door, obviously, and it was orange with 01 on the side, but with a black vinyl roof.
Did it play country and western?
But obviously I put Dixie horns in it as well, and I turned up at a Snetterton track day, and it had a tow bar on it,
and there were loads of them there, I would imagine.
I turned up at a Snetterton track day, and it was Circuit Driver magazine, and Mark Hales, who was attempting to be serious in the pit lane, and I was going past, hitting and playing Dixie every time I was going past on the main straight. I took my race cars, I had a 7 type thing, but the Cortina was more fun to shake a stick at, and then it got the 2.9 24 valve V6 in it as well.
Cosworth.
It wouldn't stop, but it was. Yeah, that was great. So I loved that thing. It was so much. So there's a bit of me that really likes the Fords and that sort of, if I was Australian, it'd be Bogan, but I do like that. And then Porsches happened at some point. So I got based in Germany, and you spend time at the Nürburgring, and I used to help take groups of Brits out there. Yeah. And Ron Simons, who's a bit of a Nürburgring legend, he used to run a thing called RSR now. When you see RSR and RSS,
it's super slick, isn't it now?
Amazing organisation. It's fantastic. But it used to be Ron with one mechanic
and some Alpha 75s
who every week would threaten to leave Ron because he'd been treated appallingly, or taken advantage of, or all the rest of it. And Ron would sort of win him round. And a fleet of Alpha 75s. It was the 75 experience. Yeah. And so I used to go out, and you'd find yourself instructing and Ron would just give you, and you would do ducks and drakes during Tourist Farm. So with people just literally following you with radios sets with earpieces that didn't really work. And just, if you give someone a radio and say, use the radio at the same time.
Well, you were shouting go left where you were facing backwards.
Well, exactly. And I'm eating a cheese sandwich, Ron's on a different level of talking on 2 mobile phones at the same time, whilst going around the outside of all of us. But you'd have 5 people. And of course, when the third person in the line has a wobbly, dives out of the way of something, ends up a bit on the grass, and then the other 2 slow down even further, then and all of a sudden you've only got 2 people behind you. You're like, what do you do? Do you slow down? Do you go faster? And it's the Nürburgring, or it starts raining halfway round, and so that's character building.
It was so much quieter then, though, wasn't it? I think people that probably go now can't imagine having the luxury of doing that, because it's just rammed.
Yeah, people taking their garden rubbish down, because you've got a Yaris cart, and it is the quickest way from the top to the bottom. From Nürburg to Adenauer. Or to take the bottles back was a classic. Down to the railway in the bottom, is you do that, and then you'd hop back on the ring and then come back up. There's somebody with one of those little trailers on the back. Which is fine, and the dog in the back of the car.
Yeah, sounds perfect.
Yeah. But you'd be overtaken by the Blue Mini, which was Achim,
I've been
plumber.
By that Mini.
Yeah. Any of the
not the plumber.
Of that. So and that sort of. Sorry. It took me a while.
We can cut that bit out. It's fine.
That should stay in.
Yeah.
So So I kind of got an appreciation for. I've never really liked Golfs, but okay. And BMWs. One of my first laps actually was in an E30, and that really sort of shaped my. I want one of those. And so when I bought a car that lived out at the Nürburgring, an E30, but the one with the most ridiculous engine that I could get into one was a great idea. I do love that car.
Do you get on track much these days, or are you more up in the control tower or organising stuff? Because Yusuf has the other week did
the track night at Anglesey.
Track night, which
it's a great idea.
He loves his track days and loves being on track, and
bit different when you turn the lights out.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then they turned the lights out, and it was dark, and then it was like I'd driven around Anglesey quite a few times, and then it's like driving somewhere completely different.
It's nuts.
Who comes up with all this? Again, you and your team go, how can we do something slightly different? How can we make it harder for people?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, how can we make it as challenging as we can?
But do you get to enjoy those? Do you get more enjoyment now pushing those on and seeing people sort of taking advantage of the opportunity? Or do you sort of have that hankering, I wish I was out there doing stuff?
Well, I mean, I've sort of gone through, so that very first race of Remembrance, I was racing, and the Graham Fudge had lent us a car to go and do it, so we had a a Mazda Works race car, but it was
the Jota cars.
Yeah, the Jota built ones, which we've still got. There's one of those cars that's done every single race of Remembrance. It's done 4 24-hour races, done a bunch of 12-hour races and stuff. It's done, various other things, and it's amazing. It's still, we bore scoped it the other day to go and have a bit of a look, and it compression tested better than it's supposed to as it was new. And you look inside it, and it's absolutely perfect. And this thing has been given death by idiots for every single mile it's ever raced.
Well, yeah, journalists have raced it.
Yeah, so. Totally.
Both Frankittis raced it. That was the
the Frankittis. Both Frankittis have been in it. It's even had a Chris Harris, who famously loves his MX-5s. We put him.
He's a big fan of those, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he is. Yeah, so we've done those. But I mean, answer to your question, the sort of Nürburgring stuff. For example, it is such a privilege to be able to share your love and your insight with other people. And to be able to share that with people who you give a stuff about is wonderful. But it does mean that as sort of the charities got bigger, we've now got, where I was the instructor, I now, sit on committees in Motorsport UK helping disabled and accessible motorsport become more available to people in the UK. It takes you further away from the grassroots of being in the car. So I do still absolutely love that, and I've sort of gradually found myself doing less and less of it because there's people now who do that for us, who we've sort of grown up through those programs. So there's a tiny bit of me sort of wanting to get my hobby back in a way to be able to do some of that. And so this year I'm going to go and do a little bit of racing, I think, which would be quite nice, because after 14 years of being out front and running the charity, I'm taking a step back from the sort of day-to-day operations of Mission Motorsport, and sort of I'll never be too far away from it, and I'm going to formally continue to work for the charity, but as founder, helping it to.
Yeah,
we've got some big stuff next year, like the Invictus Games coming back to the UK, which is really exciting. That's in July 27.
And where's that going to be?
So the NEC in Birmingham. So, but Commonwealth Games and stuff has demonstrated it's a brilliant and really sustainable venue, because you've got airport and motorway and rail all in one place, and accommodation and evening stuff. You don't need to bus people around for miles. So
that hasn't been back.
No, since 2014.
The original.
Yeah, the original in 2014. So it's done Canada twice. I think the US twice. It's done Australia. The Netherlands, it was in The Hague, and Dusseldorf. And I was really involved in that first one that was run, and then I've sort of been peripherally involved in some of the others. But it was Dusseldorf I went back out to, and it was really from my time in Germany. And when I was a student, I had one summer out there trying to do an off-Wiedersehen pet with a Geordie mate in Dusseldorf. So I kind of know the city quite well, and I was really interested, particularly after sort of Prince Harry's. The book Spare and all of that sort of stuff, and how that's received in the press. And I wanted to go and see how Invictus felt, and particularly somewhere like Germany, where military service for years has been not something that's been looked at as a desirable career, or because of some unfortunate 1940s history. I'm not really sure what they're on about, but and went to kind of just spectate. I was there for the opening ceremony, and they'd really thrown themselves into it. And Dusseldorf's got this amazing, their sporting facilities were just unbelievable in this massive arena. And you're watching the atmosphere grow as the teams are all paraded in, and they're sort of sitting on the floor of the place in this huge auditorium of sport, amazing production qualities. And everyone's kind of waiting for Prince Harry to come out and do his speech. And Harry came out and did his speech. It was brilliant. It was really good. And then the bloke came out from the main sponsors, and you sort of going, "Yeah, right, this is good." And he says his piece, and then the German defense minister Boris Pistorius. I mean, you're like, "Oh, for goodness sake, here we go." So Boris Pistorius comes out and it helpfully spoke excellent English. But his opening paragraph of his speech, he actually talked about Ukraine. And what he wasn't expecting was the applause that interrupted him going on into the second stanza of his speech. And he was on auto cue, and he lost his place, and he realised that he had to wait. And he held onto his podium, which was glass, and looked down at through this glass podium, and there in front of him was Team Ukraine. And
oh, wow.
those that could were standing and were giving him standing ovation. And you saw this bloke grip his podium and, lump in the throat and have a moment. But we're all watching him blown up 80 feet high on this huge screen behind, as they're focusing on his face. And you see this guy have a moment, and then he gets a really big standing ovation. The whole place was on their feet, didn't sit down for 10 minutes. And you think, wow, mate, this is amazing. And the reason why I remember the name of a random German politician is, so Oscar Pistorius shot his girlfriend, didn't he, through these? So I remember the surname. But Boris Pistorius, when you watch him now, he has been instrumental in determining Germany's support and making the argument against the Greens in German Parliament for support to Ukraine. He's been instrumental in an awful lot of that stuff. And you think, that's made a mark on his soul. He will remember that moment until his dying day, as will a lot of other people who were in that room. It was extraordinary. And that power of Invictus is absolutely not undimmed by, salacious gossip or royal this, that, and the others, or we don't give too much of a stuff. It still very much has a power which can transcend all of that sort of stuff. And so next summer, that's a piece of work for us. And the theme of the games is enabling communities to thrive. And as we've been talking about these armed forces communities in society, how can we uplift and promote that? There's a job of work there for us to do that I'll be proud to lean into.
No, it sounds exciting.
Sounds great. You mentioned Ukraine. In the break, you showed us something. Don't worry, it is automotive related.
Yeah.
You're off there in a couple. Is it a couple of weeks? A couple of days?
Yeah. So next month, tail end of April, I'm going out there actually with a Mission Motorsport beneficiary. We've done quite a bit with the Ukrainian recovery program. So they've been keen to learn about how are we helping literally stand people up again and get them going. I've just actually come back from the Alps. We're raising money for a program that's all about amputee care. That's been taken forward a huge amount. But there's an organisation called Driving Ukraine. They are one of many that are doing similar things, but a particularly inspirational young man runs that. An extraordinary thing. There are more than 300 vehicles they've bought here in the UK and then deployed them out to Ukraine, where they're used as casualty recovery vehicles. So these are the things that are just behind the front line, that are taking casualties off those frontline medics and helping them get back to proper medical care. This is life-saving stuff. And so raising a bit of money to buy a Toyota Hilux. And the biggest fan of Toyota Hiluxes that I've ever met in my life is a guy called Jack Taylor, who's a former RAF engineer. He's also incredibly artistic. He's the one who makes those wonderful trophies. And
he does race Remembrance trophies.
Yeah, which is joyous. And Jack's amazing. And so with the permission of his doctor, his psychologist, but most importantly his mum, we're raising a bit of money and we'll be part of one of these convoys that's going out to Ukraine. But it's also an opportunity to visit the Superhumans program, which is out there in Ukraine, that's all about personnel recovery, of going, how can they use sport, community, things like that, in order to be able to help people whose lives have been impacted. And so
are you driving out there?
Yeah, my sabbatical. Yeah, I'm going to Ukraine. So my wife's just sort of, oh, for God's sake, yeah, well, on you go. It's just like, yeah, Jude's just gone, yeah, okay, whatever, go and have a lovely time. But yeah, we're driving out there. But part of Jack's job is obviously, because it's a Toyota, so it's not going to break. But the command vehicle that we're taking out is quite special. It's a 1963 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud that's done an awful lot of historic rallying and things like that, amazingly. And that beautiful old roller's going out there as well. So we'll go out and back. So Jack's going out in a Hilux, and then he doesn't know it yet, but he'll be coming back in the silver cloud.
So where is your ultimate destination in Ukraine?
So I can't tell you, mate. That's it.
But it's a need to know.
Yeah, no, it is. It's Lviv, basically. So we're not going out there to go and try and nudge the front lines. The last thing they need is a fat, elderly, grey-haired tanker
in a Rolls-Royce.
In a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. There's one of those drones coming over. Paul.
So I know Ukraine is a vast country, it seems, because it sits in the forefront of a lot of our minds as a place that's in the midst of a horrendous war, but it seems quite strange to think, oh, well, we're driving to Ukraine. Yeah. So I guess where all the bad stuff is happening is that quite localized, or is that on one side of the country and you're driving to another, or how does that...
definitely, well, I mean, of course, that sort of Russian front line is across the south, so it sort of bisects the coastline and then across the top of Crimea and the eastern side of the country. But the Russians, are hitting things in depth, and they're not targeting military stuff. They're targeting civilian stuff. So, but it's safe. I obviously had a couple of these conversations at home. Actually, I didn't really, because you just went, whatever, you go. Anyway,
you're going to do it anyway.
Which is fine. But yeah, no, it is Lviv. So very much the western side of the country towards the Polish border, in order to hand things over. But the turnaround of these things then being used. So
they're then sent.
Yeah, and
wherever then.
So there was a convoy that went out last week, and within 3 days of that convoy dropping off a vehicle, one of those vehicles was used in a genuine casualty extraction in the east of the country. So these things properly get used.
Do they have a list of vehicles? I don't know, they probably want anything they can get their hands on, but is there a...
Yeah, there absolutely is. So and they're securing, and they are they've got people out there hunting down vehicles for them all the time. L300s were a real sort of favoured, but if you try and buy an L300 in the UK now, the prices of... it's very difficult to find one of that vintage, and it's because a lot of these have gone out to Ukraine.
So I guess any kind of 4x, like a Shogun or a Isuzu,
that's it.
Whatever,
and the Hiluxes, stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. Are perfect for that kind of thing. More parochially, and for the Cameron family fleet, the Dodge, I was supposed to have sold that at a profit, and then I wanted a Ferret. Which is
Ferret scout car.
Yeah. Well, I commanded the last ever Ferret in British Army service. Wow. Onto the back of the low loader that was taking it away to get shot at as a tank target in Otterburn. I was very offended. With it. Yeah, I love that Ferret. So I always really wanted a Ferret, because you can. And I've got the perfect spot for it at home. It wouldn't go in the shed. I've got an armoured hide that's going to be right gap between some trees that I could just slot it into with a thing.
Do you think that's going to be some sort of garden water feature?
You could emerge like out of the back cave in my Ferret. It'd be just be brilliant. With Brian the dog, I'd be so happy.
Yeah, Brian would love that.
But prices of ferrets have gone through the roof, which is crazy. But it's because armoured stuff is finding its way out to Ukraine, because it's really easy to sit here, and drink tea and look out of the window and think, isn't life peaceful and all of the rest of it? But on the eastern border,
I can't imagine. Cannot imagine.
It is mind-numbing, and because we become numb to it because of the scale and pace of the news cycle and the lunacy of what the Trump government is giving us, just in terms of a new challenge every day of, it's Cuba now, or Greenland, or that you just get lost in this incredible.
Yeah, Ukraine is barely on the news agenda anymore, is it? It's just a thing that's happening in the background.
Totally, but it's very real for people who who were a big part of the automotive industry.
Yes,
in all of that side. Yeah. So that knock on into automotive, of a place that's at the centre, at the heart of European manufacturing, is it's those skills that have enabled them to survive in no small part. The pace of their change and their
initiative with developing,
turn it to drone stuff as well. And there's a bit of that we're starting to think about in this country too. So one of the other pieces of work we've been doing is helping automotive industry companies to understand and access defence market stuff. How can they make themselves ready to be able to take on, whether it's Ministry of Defence or other supporting things, to be able to use British ingenuity or all of the rest of it to be able to satisfy, because we're in a changing world.
Yeah, we did that. Well, the industry did it in the pandemic, didn't it? Turned to McLaren with
wonderful examples. RML and companies like that.
Well, that skill set in those companies is
Williams. Yeah, absolutely.
Very fast, isn't it?
But and it comes from. So why do those companies exist? Why do we have a motorsport triangle that is where it is? This is all left over from the Second World War, and where Beaverbrook, took British industry and, turned it into, let's make Spitfires and Hurricanes at an extraordinary pace. And of course, you're making Spitfires and Hurricanes in places like Castle Bromwich, in places like, that's turning out Bentleys these days, as where the Merlin engines were built.
Yeah.
it is part of our national heritage and character that we have the ability to do that kind of thing. And the contemporary contextual version of that, it's really easy to change the channels and forget about it. But it's something that is a grim reality if we're to continue to enjoy the freedom that we've basked in for the last decade.
Yeah, it comes at a price, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. So me deploying a Hilux isn't a huge step in the right direction, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to get to go and do something.
And how much money do you need to raise for your
So
Hilux?
The amazing thing is that Driving Ukraine are such a professional organisation that for £7,000, that covers the purchase of a vehicle. These things get serviced, they get the right tyres put on them, they all end up the same sort of uniform colour of sort of dodgy green or
Paint to sample.
Absolutely, yeah. Paint to sample, Putin spec, absolutely. And then that also covers the costs of getting the thing out there in order to be able to do it. So I'm raising £7,000, but the money that gets raised over and above that, they then plough into the next generation of vehicles that are getting sourced, but also things like drone countermeasures as well too. So that the better they can send these things across to be equipped to be useful, saves Ukrainians money on the other side and just sort of helps them in. And it's a lovely way for something that is entirely, defensive, is entirely altruistic, is entirely about, helping people out where there have been casualties, to be able to help people to survive. It's a really meaningful way in which people can lean in and make a difference, and I'd encourage them to do that. That overlap with that lovely Mission Motorsport thing as well is there are lots of veterans who are involved in doing this, as well as working out there in Ukraine as well, helping to refit some of these vehicles.
Is there a website or anywhere people can look for?
Yeah, so if you go and have a look at Driving Ukraine, if you just all one word, Google will help get you there into the right place. You'll find some incredibly compelling stuff, and we'll hope to try and tell the story a little bit as well of us going out there with a silver cloud that I don't want to be anywhere near the front line with.
I don't know, it's probably pretty strong.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? So, I have a Rolls-Royce armour car story that I will tell you at some point, but it's probably going to be over a pint and away from this.
How can people get involved in Mission Motorsport? How can they support it? And then we will let you go back to
thank you,
getting ready for your adventure.
So Mission Motorsport is the Forces Motorsport charity. It's on missionmotorsport.org. You can find it on all of the obvious social sites and things like that. Mission Motor SPT, I think it's shortened to, on Twitter and on Instagram. Obviously, donations and people who go and raise funds for us is the lifeblood of charity, and without that, nothing works. But for Remembrance Weekend, Race of Remembrance is not just a race that happens in Anglesey. It is how British motorsport and the motor industry marks Remembrance Weekend, and encouraging people to support the Poppy Appeal, to take that moment to stop and take a pause over remembrance, and to do something to support the Forces Motorsport charity is the way in which we can bring things together. One of the pieces of work that we were talking about, it has been in clean energy, is to try and help those who've served in the forces to find their way into great jobs afterwards. And as such, I was in the National Energy Systems Operator main control room, which is the big place that controls the flow of electricity across the UK. So it's really cool. So where they turn on the nuclear power stations and off, and the flow underneath, and overproduction and all of the rest of it. It's amazing. But it's also the place that would generate that fascinating statistic every year that, the peak power usage in X year was normally at the end of the Bond film at Christmas. Do you remember? We all sat down to watch it at the same time, and everybody... It's such a British thing as well, there's that peak from, everyone goes to the loo, flushes the toilets and the pumps run, but they make a cup of tea and they turn kettles on. Yeah. But it's streaming these days, so they no longer see that, Bond film moment at Christmas in the same way. They see the peaks for things like the Six Nations, they see Strictly Final, but in 2025... I know,
Kill me now.
Exactly. Were you not watching?
I assume on the Six Nations in England, it was quite a lot of half time. And
Oh my God, yeah. Anyway, but in 2025, the peak power usage in the UK was on a Tuesday. Completely. Any guesses? It was at 11:04 on the 11th of November.
Oh, really?
And that talks about national character. That's not me. Veterans and remembrance types sort of doing that. That's about national character.
So that's after the silence
After the silence on the 11th of the 11th was the time when most people in the UK simultaneously used the most power.
Wow.
I think that's extraordinary.
Yeah, that is extraordinary. Great way to end as well, I think.
Thank you.
Henry, Dickie and Jim, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Absolute
Best
pleasure.
of luck to Ukraine.
Thank you, and coming back again, hopefully. So,
Well, most of the car comes back.
yes, that's important.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next time.